Hello Daily Drafters, and welcome back to the channel for the introduction of the next Arena Gauntlet League. The Tarkir Dragonstorm Gauntlet League is an open invitation customized league on MTG Arena that you may not be super familiar with, and it has a unique set of rules, so let's give a quick rundown of the details. The Arena Gauntlet League is a curated, limited format where you open a traditional sealed pool of 6 play booster packs, and you build a 60 card deck, and yes, this is notably larger than the usual 40 card deck, and you'll see why in a moment, and you battle through a series of weekly gauntlets to attempt to qualify for a top 8 mega draft at the end of the season. Now, the reason that the deck size begins at 60 and not 40 is because every time you lose a match, you get to add a comeback pack to your pool to boost your deck for future matches. When you reach your 11th overall loss, you're eliminated from the tournament. Simple as that. Each season, the Gauntlet League rules take on a bit of a twist to reflect the setting of the league, and with Tarkir Dragonstorm, there's a lot going on. So let's start with comeback packs. As I said, every time you lose, you get to open a comeback pack and add that to your current pool of cards to bolster your deck for upcoming league matches. This acts as somewhat of a negative feedback loop to ensure that those that keep winning might not just run away with the whole tournament at the expense of those who rack up some early losses. In this league, after your first loss, you will be presented with 1 pack of Tarkir Dragonstorm and 1 pack of what our league committee is calling Tarkir Reforged. And this isn't a real set per se, but it's rather a curated list of 334 cards meant to synergize with the themes that Tarkir Dragonstorm features. You can see some of these cards flashing across your screen now. This Reforged pack will contain the same collation as a play booster, so it's kind of like the league designed their own set. It's kind of cool. After you review the contents of both packs, you get to choose one of the 2 packs to add to your pool. Once you lose your second match, you get presented with the exact same pack of cards that you didn't choose from your first loss, in addition to another pack of the same set as that unchosen pack. So choose one of those 2, add it to your pool, and be on your merry way. After your third loss, the cycle repeats from the beginning with 2 brand new packs, 1 from each set. Now, what fun would a revisit to Tarkir be without a little battle of the clans? As you likely know, the clans of Mardu, Temur, Abzan, Sultai, and Jeskai inhabit the lands of Tarkir, and each member of the league has been placed into one of these clans. We so happen to have been granted the privilege of joining the Abzan clan this time around. At the end of each week of play, the clans are ranked by their overall win percentage as a group and receive clan ascendancy points based on their rank according to the table below. So, not only are we doing our best to be among the top 8 performers in the entire league, but we're working to make sure the Abzan clan accrues points over the course of the league and wins the Ascendancy Challenge after week 5. At the end of week 5, whichever clan wins the Ascendancy Challenge gets to have a separate clan mega draft where the top 8 performers in that clan compete against each other for additional prizes and Player of the Year invites. I'll be sure to keep you updated of the Ascendancy rankings, my league rank, and also my rank within the Abzan clan. The last aspect of this league are the Khanate Games, a little side quest available to players in each clan who wish to participate, and a way to accrue a few more Ascendancy points each week. In weeks 1 through 5, the side quests you see on your screen now will be happening in the background. These will only involve a few members of each clan and will be very difficult to cover here on the channel, but I'll update you on how these events end up and where the points associated with them end up being distributed. That being said, yours truly is first up in week 1, where I will be participating in the Tarkir Dragonstorm team draft with 2 other members of the Abzan clan taking on 3 members of the Sultai clan. The winner of the team draft takes home 18 Ascendancy points for their clan, and I'll be recording this team draft and uploading it here to the channel between weeks 1 and 2 of League play. Starting this upcoming Monday, April 18th, I will be posting each of my 5 weekly matches as individual videos without cuts in gameplay, Monday through Friday each week. I'll sprinkle in some Khanate Games side quest content when I can, but this will surely be a fun one to follow along with. This is basically everything you need to know to be ready to follow along with my participation in the Tarkir Dragonstorm Gauntlet League. This league has 184 members, the most participants in the history of the league, so a top 8 is obviously a stretch. But we'll do our best and hopefully have fun along the way. There are a maximum of 6 weeks in the league prior to the top 8 mega draft, assuming you don't accumulate 11 match losses prior to the 6th week of competition. So we're shooting for a record of at least 20-10. Today's video will conclude with my sealed deck build that I'll use to begin this tournament, and it also features a special guest to help me out. Now, we were having a few technical difficulties during this next segment, so I wasn't able to capture either of our face cams, but it'll still act as somewhat of a podcast segment, and you can also follow along on the screen with the deck build as it goes by as well. See you there. Okay, and welcome to the deck building portion of this intro video here, and I have a special guest with me here today. I have two-time league winner, five-time league top 8 member, and founder of the Arena Gauntlet League with me here today, Chris York, to give us a little bit of advice on week 1 deck building in the Arena Gauntlet League. Thanks for joining me today, Chris.
Thank you, John, for having me. Let's look at this pile of cards that you opened.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a history of going 2 and 3 in the first week of every single AGL I've been in, I'm pretty sure. This is my 5th one. All 4 of the other ones I've gone 2 and 3. So we're going to try to curb that trend here today and start with this pile of cards that we've got. So the first thing that I usually like to do, and I'm curious as to your opinion on this as well, is obviously sort by rarity. This is what we all do at our pre-release at our LGSs on Fridays and Saturdays. We sort by rarity and it's like, what rares can I put into my pool? But we've got a little bit of a different twist here with the AGL because we have to build a 60 card deck. So what sort of considerations go into that for you, considering rarity and quantity of cards?
Yeah, the fun of a 60 card deck to start is that a lot of cards go in that wouldn't normally make the cut in a 40 card sealed. So you have to be willing to play with cards that would otherwise just sit in the sideboard or be chucked straight in the garbage. And I think that's part of the charm of our format, is that you have to struggle a bit. I suppose it's a bit like a roguelite. You start out with your adventure with very little equipment, and as the league goes on, your deck size stays the same, but your quality cards goes up as you add comeback packs with every loss, and you can improve your equipment as you adventure onward. So that's the good thing about going 2-3 in week 1. As you know from having top 8'd in Foundations, that's a recoverable stumble. But still, it's good to, if you can, start off a bit more strongly. So even though you're using cards that are suboptimal or subpar, you can arrange them in such a way to maximize your chances of getting that 5-0 or 4-1 that players covet at the end of week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I look at this pile here, I notice I have very few black cards in general. Many more white cards, and with this Tarkir being a 3-color set, the hope when opening my pool for the first time was that I would have tons of fixing to go along with playing all these gold cards, and we ended up with 0 uncommon tri-lands and 4 dual lands, 3 of which touch green. So I don't have what I would hope to consider great fixing. But let's start with the rares that I do have and see what you think about this direction a little bit. What I started to do here was group my rares into kind of 2 different piles. I have New Way Forward and Teamer Battle Crier as kind of Jeskai Teamer blue-based rares. And then all of the other ones. We've got the Scavenger Regent, the Voice of Victory, Baron Step Siege, Hollow Merc Siege, and Corey Steelcutter over on the other side, which lends me more toward a bit of an Abzan, possibly Mardu life with some fixing in there. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, your rares want you to be Abzan or arguably Mardu, right? Depending on which way you go, depending on whether you think the Hollow Merc Siege or the Corey Steelcutter is the stronger rare to draw you into that 3rd color. But I think that, at the very least, it's looking like you're going to want black and white in the mix there. To me, that suggests that maybe Abzan is a bit comfier since you're really only going to be splashing for the Corey Steel Cutter. And if you're not playing 2 cards a turn, it's going to be hard to get the full effect of that equipment. It's very powerful, but you have to consistently know that you're going to be hitting your 2 spells, which means that without blue, it's going to be hard to refill your grip and keep getting the benefits of the Corey Steel Cutter. So your rares are saying Abzan, but as you know, rares are not the only consideration, right? I had a bit of a discussion with you prior to the recording, right? And I said, look, the basic contrast in League is this. It's power versus consistency in week 1. Power is where you try to get all your rares or as many as possible of your powerful cards into one deck. And consistency is where you try to narrow the number of colors that you're using to the bare minimum. So 2, if at all possible, which doesn't look to be the case with your pool, or 2 in a splash. So then the question is, right, if the rares are taking us seemingly into Abzan territory, where's the fixing taking us? So if we look at your dual lands, right, they're taking us into Simic, right, which isn't necessarily a huge amount of overlap with Abzan, right? The green is the only factor which ties these 2 things together. Now, that's not necessarily all bad news, right? Because we might think if the support is there in green, we could also maybe splash some blue. I don't know. We'll see what we have. But there is some tension, right, between the dual lands that you have and the directions you can go. So the 2 Blossoming Sands, actually, those are also Abzan, aren't they?
Yeah, the
Sorry,
Blossoming Sands and maybe the Bloodfell
I thought
Caves.
I thought I had 3 Thornwood Falls on my hands,
Oh,
but there's actually 2 Blossoming Sands. So this is a good thing. This is great, actually.
yeah. I think for Abzan, the Blossoming Sands really do help.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that was just a misread on my part. So this is looking up. John, your prospects are good. So the third consideration, right, between rares and between fixing is the curve, right? So I'm going to ask you to sort your cards according to their mana value.
Okay.
And let's look at the third axis of evaluation, which I think is important for making a good week 1 league deck. So let's check out 1, 2, and 3, those rows especially. And we can see that you have a preponderance of white cards.
Yes.
You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 white cards in rows 1 to 3. Now, if you compare that with blue, you have roughly half that with 7. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in black, slightly more, but still not ideal. In red, you only have 6.
Mm-hmm.
And in green, you have 1, 2, 3, you have 5. So to me, it seems pretty clear, right, between your rares and your fixing and your curve that you really do want to be Abzan.
I think I'd agree with that. And that lines up perfectly because the clan that I was sorted to at the beginning of this league happens to be Abzan. So I think we're right on flavor there.
Oh no, I'm working for the enemy.
Haha.
As a Sultai, I've been tricked into this, into working for the other clan. My Khan will not be pleased when he finds out about this.
Uh-oh. So I agree that we've got a lot of great early white. It looks like, especially with the 2s, now the Tempest Hawks are their own kind of thing. I'm not a huge fan of that card, but either way, we do have a lot of 2 drops in white. We've only got a certain number of black cards in general. The good news is they're all relatively cheap. The bad news is I don't particularly like a ton of them, and there's not a lot of them. But if I kind of start by bringing down almost all of these white cards, particularly the 2 and 3 drops here, I've got some combat tricks, some 2 drops, a couple pieces of removal, Pack Beast, Skyrider. I guess the Abzan Devotee could help me with a little bit of fixing if I'm going to splash some green here. Earth Carver, Strategic Betrayal's probably a necessary evil here this early on. Krumar Initiates. This is a card I hope to not play, but I'll put it in for now. Aggressive
Why not?
Negotiations, but
I think Krumar Initiate's a great card.
really, 2
Uh,
mana, 2
yeah,
2.
yeah, it's huge. Like it's basically it's a Phyrexian processor. You keep paying life and you keep making creatures. As long as you've got a reliable way to restock your life total, this card replaces itself or even just keeps multiplying itself, indefinitely.
Yeah,
It's a huge boon for your deck.
I guess you're right. For some reason in my mind, when I read this card and then immediately wrote it off, I read it basically as put counters on this, which that's basically not
No,
the form of it. You would want to create the spirits as opposed to creating the counters.
I think so.
I guess it would be at its base, like 2 mana, pay 1 life, make a 1/1 every turn, which
Yep.
is not bad. So actually, all right, yeah,
Oh,
I
it's a bitter
guess.
blossom, right? On that basis, it's basically like a slightly more expensive bitter blossom.
Ah, well, there we go. That's why you're here, to help me read cards.
No, I had that in the pre-release, and sometimes the advantage that it gains you is enough to tip a game over. Now, that being said, there's a danger that you're going to dump all your life into making, tokens, and then you're going to get cheesed out by a board wipe and be no further ahead. But I think that's the exception rather than the rule. I think if you're paying life into this guy, you're getting more than a card worth of value out of it.
Yeah, I
And the
think.
same thing with the Tempest Hawk, right? That's a card that go gets another card out of your deck. In week one, flyers really matter a lot. And even your 2/2 Windrake that goes and fetches another Windrake, it's definitely worth looking at, I think. You
Okay.
might you might laugh. You might think this is not a great idea, but with so few playables in the pool, I think that's a really important element of your build.
Yeah, I mean these are great things to think about because when I'm drafting, particularly most sets, I have my idea where I see a Tempest Hawk and I'm like, that's not for today. I'll just not pick that card. And then, in sealed, especially a 60 card format like this, as in week one as being as slow as it is, this might just be good enough and it might need to fit in. What I've done here over on my screen right now is I've pulled down every single black and white card that I have in my pool, not counting a couple of the colorless cards. And I'm here at 30 cards. Now, that is every single black and white, not
Yep.
necessarily even the ones that I might not want to play, which means we have to include a third color, which we determine should probably be green. Would you agree?
I believe so. Yeah.
So when
I
looking
think that's
at the green cards that we would want to bring in, what catches your eye? Because in my draft mind, I'm like, I don't want to splash any of this, but now I have to.
okay. So first of all, I mean, let's look at the white and the black cards that you're not going to use definitely. So for me, I'm not a big fan of the card Aggressive Negotiations. 3 mana coercion effects, even if they have a little bit of upside, not very strong. I don't think there's too many situations where your opponent's going to have unloaded by the time that you draw that card. But I think you're not going to want to run those. Um,
I
I don't
would
know if there's
agree.
anything
Yeah.
else that's egregiously bad in black or white that you've brought down. Anything else that you can see that you might not want to run? I think you could make an argument for including or cutting Rebellious Strike. I think Rebellious Strike's great as a cantrip. In other words, it just kind of smooths out your deck, especially in week one, we need that sort of connective tissue to go from one spell to the next, or even just to draw the next land. Sometimes those spells go a long way
Yeah, they
to make.
particularly work well with Mobilize, which I don't seem to have a ton of. It looks like I've got maybe two or maybe three creatures that have Mobilize potentially, but yeah, I mean maybe one Rebellious Strike like isn't horrible, but yeah, I agree with you.
So I'm just looking at your green cards that are worth splashing. I think like in terms of late game, I know this is going off of the curve theory a little bit, but since this isn't your splash, you're probably going to use the mana later in the game. So Desuet Earth Carver is basically two creatures in one, which is pretty good at
Mm-hmm.
the top of your curve at 6. I see a utility creature that I think that you should be running just for its flexibility, right? So the Undergrowth Leopard. This is a format where you have like tons of problematic artifacts and enchantments, especially lurking around, and just having that cat there to break a siege, right? Like the one you're running presumably will be Hollow Merc Siege, but there are more powerful sieges out there as well. And just having access to that one green disenchant effect kind of justifies the splash, and that's something you're happy to see late game when an enchantment's really getting out of control. In fact, there is a green enchantment, the one that makes everything into a 6/6. I forget what it's called now.
Yeah, also can't remember.
But that you want to get rid of it on site. So
Yes.
those two really stand out for me
Okay.
as cards that you're going to want to splash.
Well, something else, maybe the Sagu Pummeler 4 mana 4/4 reach with Renew seems
Yeah, that sounds good.
fine. I've also got the Host of the Hereafter in the gold cards, which is the 4 mana, basically 4/4 that can put its counters on something when it dies, which is
Also good. Yep.
fine here. We've got a couple of these like two hybrid cards, but I've got three Gurmag Night Watches, which could theoretically fit into this deck. I don't like this card. It'd be a 4 mana in our deck. It'd be a 4 mana 3/3 that enters and then just like puts a card on top of your library. I mean,
Yeah, so it's not exactly card advantage, is it? It's card
yeah,
selection. I mean,
yeah,
you could splash them using your Thornwood Falls and maybe search a land, but it seems like yeah, you're mostly going to be paying 4 for that, and it's not really a great effect. You do have a reputable merchant in the Abzan colors. I don't know. How do you feel about a reputable merchant?
yeah. If we're playing Abzan and we're running green, I think it's probably fine. As we've talked about, kind of the necessary evil of including some cards you might not usually splash. That seems like one we could probably fit in.
And I don't know if you don't have enough green to splash. Maybe even just think about the Watcher of the Wayside. Um, it gets you a couple life. It puts the 3/2 body into play. And if you have any of the let's say, is it renew? Is it or let's see.
Yeah, the ones that can work out of your graveyard. I think that's Renew.
Yeah, so you those cards, if you mill those, that gives you extra sort of reach. So it's kind of an interesting role player. I don't know if you feel very strongly about it, but it's not bad for a week one sort of patch on your deck. And you can, if you're running 3 colors, you can always run it no matter what you draw. So it's you can call this guy Old Faithful. You can count on him to get played at least and have
Yeah, yeah,
a role
definitely.
play.
It's definitely an inclusion there. I've got 34 sitting here in my deck right now, which would be 34 non-lands and 26 lands. My base is to usually run 25 lands. What do you think about land count?
I very, very rarely go above 24.
24. Okay.
And 24, yeah. So basically, the way that it works in most magical formats is that you have 3 spells for every 2 lands, right? And so if you look at the 60 cards, what is, uh, what's the ratio there? Well, you have 36 spells and 24 lands. That's the sort of baseline. Now, some people like to sort of, you know, try to protect themselves by going to 25 or even 26, but I think that the death of your deck is when you're just drawing land after land after land. I would rather like build in some early kind of cycling style cards, like the white one that I showed you, right? What's it called
The
again?
Rebellious Strike.
Yeah, that kind of thing would replace your 25th or 26th land. It actually has some use to it, and it can sort of draw you through to the rest of your lands or your spells or whatever. So I'd rather have a cantrip in there than an extra land in most cases.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, good to think about that as well. That puts me at 35 playables, and I could probably find one more in here to fill out the deck and put it at 24, and I can figure out the lands from there with these
Well,
blossoming
like,
sands, I guess.
if you really want to protect yourself, you could play your Embermouth Sentinel. That's also a colorless card that goes and grabs land for you. So it kind of replaces a land draw, but it's also a creature when you don't need a land.
Yeah, I do have. I love these effects. I'm way too high on these 2 mana 2/1s that get lands. I've got that in my main deck right now. I think a lot of people don't like these kind of style of cards, but for some reason I just love being able to get my third color if I need it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's people do want these days we're spoiled, right? We want cards that give us more cards, and a card that simply lines up our next draw instead of giving us a card in hand is normally seen as pretty substandard. But what do you want for 2 mana, right?
Yeah,
2 mana,
exactly.
you got basically the boot nipper body, and it fixes your land.
Yeah.
Boot nipper body without the boot nipper keywords.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Yeah, well my instinct was heading toward Abzan here. I had a little bit of red tempting me during my own portion of the deck build, but I'm glad that I was at least brought and validated in my feelings of where I was headed with this pool of cards here. And yeah, I feel a little bit better about being able to start here, and maybe you'll be the piece of the puzzle I need to get away from this 2-3 streak that I start leagues with.
Well, John, I'm going to be looking at your progress with great interest, and I wish you all the best in week number 1. This could be the one that turns it all around for you. I think I'm thinking this is going to be a 4-1 or a 3-2 at the very worst for you.
Yeah, let's go with that. And then we've also got what is the numbers at for this league? Do we have 170 something members as well?
We have 181 or 182. It's the largest league of all time, for our little series.
Wow.
And that means that our clans are 36 members strong. So you're playing this league with 35 at least other teammates who are there to advise you, help you with strategy, work with you on the side events, and yeah, I think it's. I don't know if you've ever been part of a faction league. I don't think so, but it's a great community building moment on the server, and I think you're going to like it.
Yeah, I've already, well, spoiler, I suppose. This will come out after the draft has happened, but I've already volunteered as tribute for the Abzan team draft this upcoming week. So I will be participating in side events
Oh,
religiously.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
So yeah, this is roughly what we're gonna start. I'll clean it up here and import it over into Arena. Thanks so much, Chris, for joining me here today. The league founder of the Arena Gauntlet League. If without him, none of this would be possible, and you wouldn't be seeing this content here today. So thanks so much again, and maybe I'll see you on the battlefield in a couple weeks.
Thanks, John. You've been too kind. Appreciate the hospitality. Good luck.
Okay, and to put a bow on this one here today, I've gone ahead and imported basically where we left off with Chris here into Arena and built the deck, added some lands. Chris recommended 24. I'm going to go with him. I usually, like I mentioned in the deck build portion, want to default to 25. I'm gonna go with 24 like Chris recommended here. I added back in one of these aggressive negotiations. I don't think the card's great either, like he had mentioned, but it's just, we don't really have anything else. There's another aggressive negotiation, some more green cards, I guess. I guess we could think about like the Champion of Doosan, but the green is much more of a splash here. We're just including basically our best green cards that we have in the sideboard here. I've got 5 green sources, 12 white, and 9 black to go with this deck right here. So this is the deck I'm going to be running to start the league. I'm not thrilled with it, but you know, we've always got the comeback packs to help us out, and I do think we've got a little bit of power and consistency with just some, you know, some drawing of cards of pack beasts, and the sieges are good rares as well. So hopefully those can help us out. And this is where we're going to start, and you will see our first match posted to the channel in a few days here on Monday. Thanks for tuning in today for the intro video, and I'll see you next time here at Daily Draft.